Hello, now we are going to look at how to do the forehand grip. Whenever we want to use our tools for any reason, we make sure we have our first aid kit out and with us. We have our trained first aider whose training is in date and everyone knows who that first aider is. And before we take our knives out, we check our blood circle. The area and arm span around and behind us is completely clear of anyone. When we've done that, we can take out our knives. Now the forehand grip gives us a lot of power over a short distance. So where it's often used is for putting a point on the end of a stick. But before we come to the forehand grip, we're going to look at what we might instinctively do if we hadn't been trained in how to use our knife. So we check our blood circle. If we hadn't been trained in how to put a point on the end of a stick or in how to remove timber, and we wanted to put a point on something, what we might instinctively do is push the knife away from us by bending at the elbow, as so. There's two problems with this cut. One is that it sends the knife flying around the place in quite an uncontrolled way, so particularly as we work in groups, it's quite a dangerous cut for that reason. And the other is that it sends a lot of shock into our arm. My arm is snapping out straight over and over again, and that ends up hurting my elbow and my shoulder. So we never really want to use this cut where we're pushing the knife away at our elbow. There's always a better solution. And if we want to remove lots of material over a short distance, the forehand grip is the better solution. So what we do is, instead of working out with our elbows out on our knees as we often do, we're going to work out to the side of our body, and we're going to hold our piece of timber and brace it against our leg. I'm bracing the piece of timber out to my dominant side, and I'm going to bring my knife up, have the tip of the knife facing upward. That would be the tip facing down, tip facing upward, so that I get a slicing cut. And I'm going to hold my arm straight and raise my shoulder. So instead of getting the movement from bending my elbow, what I'm going to do is raise up my shoulder and let it drop down. And raise up my shoulder and let it drop down. So I start right next to the handle of the knife, the tip of the knife facing upward to help me get a slicing cut. Hold the arm straight, raising the shoulder, and I drop it down. Now that cut didn't go all the way through, but that's not a problem. Instead of trying to force it all in one go, I restart the cut right next to my handle of my knife, tip facing up, let my shoulder drop down, and in the second cut through there, I got all the way through. So instead of trying to force things through all in one go, I use multiple slicing cuts to achieve what I need to. So elbow straight, shoulder rise, drop the shoulder, do that repeatedly. My hand braced against my leg, the stick about a foot away from my body. So it's out away from my body, and the cut also goes out away from my body. My shoulder rising and lowering, and to some extent my core rising and lowering, is going to send the knife out away from me. So the knife gets further from me as this cut is working. So that's how I can do this seated. But sometimes if we're making a steak, we're going to not have a chopping block. We're not going to have a carving area to work on. So if we don't, we can still do this cut standing. Now I'm going to move, so I'm going to put my knife back in my sheath, and now I can stand up. So if I'm in an area where I just need to make a stake or holding something down, I can check my blood circle as normal, and I'm clear. And I can bend my knee slightly, and I can have the stick braced against my hip or wherever is comfortable down my upper leg, and the piece of timber out to my side. My shoulder rises up, the tip facing upward as I'm cutting, so that would be down, the tip facing upward, and again drop the shoulder and my upper body, but particularly the shoulder, and I'm able to take my slicing cuts. The knife moving out away from me in a very controlled, safe action. Tip of the knife facing up, rise the shoulder and lower it. I can also use this cut onto the chopping block to get even more force. So again, I'm moving, I put my knife back into my sheath as I'm moving. And I can also work down onto a chopping block. So when I want to work onto my chopping block, ordinarily if I was working on a chopping block, I'd put the piece of timber on the other side of the chopping block to me. In this case, I actually want it over next to me. I want the piece of timber effectively directly beneath my upper body, because I'm going to bear down with the strength of my core and the weight of my body to help me with this cut. So checking my blood circle, I can take my knife out and I'm going to have the piece of timber directly beneath me, so I'm leaning ever so slightly forward. Piece of timber directly beneath me, not away from me like this. I don't want to be reaching around to try and get to the piece of timber. It should be directly beneath me, out at the edge of the chopping block closest to me. And again, raise the tip of the knife and then let my shoulder drop. So shoulder rise and drop. Shoulder rise and drop. I didn't go all the way through there, so I just let it slide through. And I restart next to the handle, tip of the knife facing upward, slide through again. And by doing multiple slicing cuts, I can get through my material. So the reason why I want to be over at the edge of the chopping block here is if I wasn't, every time I'd come down to the bottom of my cut, I'd end up punching my knuckles down into the chopping block, which isn't any good for me. So again, tip of the knife facing upward to give me a nice slicing action. Raise the shoulder, lower the shoulder. My arm stays straight throughout the whole process. As I'm finished with my knife, it immediately goes back into its sheath. So that's how I can use the forehand grip to get short, powerful cuts. And that is what we need for now.